let's open up the final model that you guys were working on last week. You should have your layers minimized to only these things, like the lens, the light cone, the switch, the light base, and let's see, the outside frame, and the diffuser. Right? This is what we're looking for today. Because I want to introduce you a very quick way to create a drawing. Okay? Now, in the first 5 weeks of this class, we learned AutoCAD to make a drawing of our solar light. But you need to understand that between the 2D world and the 3D world, the software behaves in different ways. In some ways, it take a long time, like AutoCAD. And some ways of using the software takes literally 5 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to show you a way to make a drawing of the light, the solar light, and it only takes less than 10 seconds to do. Okay, so what I want to do is go through a quick exercise of turning our 3D model into 2D data, and then quickly adding our different views: top, front, bottom, right, and left. I want to add some dimensions, and I want to add a border and title block. Okay. So go ahead and open up your solar light, and let's go through this quickly, and then I'll come around and help you. Okay. All right. So I've got my model. I've made efficient all of my layers. I have nothing extra. I have just what I need for the final design. Now let's make a drawing of this so that I can send it to the model maker, I can email it to an engineer, I can send it to a prototyping company. They need to understand rough dimensions of my design, okay? All right, so first of all, we go up here to dimension and we zoom down to make 2D drawing, okay? Very self-explanatory. And we click here, and up comes select objects to draw. Okay. In the perspective view, let's pick the wrong view first to see what I'm trying to explain here. This is kind of the generic view of our design. That's the view that explains everything. Okay. Now a view like this, not so good, right? It doesn't really explain the design. Okay, so I'm going to choose the wrong view to show you first what not to do, okay? So up here it says select objects to draw. In the perspective view, I pick everything, okay? Enter, and I get my drawing options window, okay? Here, the only thing you need to select is the For-View USA. Now, they have a USA version and they also have a European version, because there's a difference between the views between Europe and USA. And since this is software that comes from the USA, they come first, and then the European version, okay? But as a designer, you need to know both modes, okay? When you're looking, or when you're communicating with a European partner, you have to understand the European way, and when you're working with the Americans, you have to understand the USA way. So just for examples in this class, let's just pick USA for now, okay? Let's leave all this unchecked for now, and let's not touch this, and click OK. And so now it's thinking through all of the different pieces of geometry, and depending on how complex your model is, this stage might take 30 seconds, it might take 5 minutes, okay? So let's go back to the top view here and zoom out, and you can see it's created 4 different views, okay? We've got the top view, the front view, the right view, and the perspective view that we chose, okay? Now, like I said, this is not the exact view that sort of explains the design, okay? So we need to pick a perspective view first when we do this 2D drawing, okay? So let's delete this and go back and select kind of a generic view of our design. Kind of a top 3/4 view is what I like to call it, okay? So this is the view I like. Let's go back to dimension, make 2D drawing, select objects, and return. For view USA, yes. Okay, thinking. Now we're going to get this perspective view, which explains our design. Remember, this is all about communicating your design to other people, okay? Now, we use the tool to design with, but at the end of the day, we're trying to communicate with other people in a language that they understand, okay? Which is views and dimensions, okay? All right, so now, just so you know, there's not a perfect algorithm inside of Rhino, okay? And as you can see, we've got these tangent lines here in our perspective view, and we lost some of that here, okay? So, if you don't like that, let's try it again with a slightly different view. Okay, let's move it around. It takes a little bit of adjustment to get this right. Because you're feeding data into the algorithm that creates this 2D drawing, okay? Sometimes it catches everything, sometimes it misses it. Okay? Alright, so it appears that we're missing some tangency information, okay? But I think that's enough information to communicate with. Okay, so I'm going to leave that. And I'm going to go to my top view, and let's create a drawing now. Okay, so I've got my top, front, and I got my right view. So the first thing I want to do is create a center line. Here. Let's turn on ortho. All right, there's my center line. Let's mirror this over. Where's my mirror tool? Mirror. Okay. Also, let's mirror the top view to the bottom. Got everything. Mirror. Now, that's a little bit far away, so let's move that. Okay, a little bit closer. Okay, I like that. This distance looks good. This distance looks good. But this is a little bit too close for my taste, so let's move that over here. Okay, so now I got my views. Now let's draw our border, which is close to A3 size. We don't have to be perfect here. Okay, there's my border. Let's put that on the drawing layer here. Okay, let's move that into place. Center it. I don't need this. All right, I think that's good. Let's make use of the space here. Let's move that over. Move that over a little bit. Okay, now I've filled the space. I can create my, I can offset my border. Offset curve. And let's go 5 millimeters or 10. Let's just do 10. To the inside. Okay, there's my double border. Oh, we're still on the wrong layer here. Let's switch layers. Select sublayer. Okay, now let's create our title block. Okay. Now let's create some general dimensions, some overall dimensions. Okay, so let's create a new layer called dims, And since we like dimensions nice and bright, let's change color to red. And let's make sure that our precision is carried through. So dimension linear, this should be 330. Perfect, right? We like that. Okay, but wrong layer. Change there. Okay, now my text is a little bit too small, hard to read. So let's go into our dimension styles, and let's make a few changes here to our text height. Let's change that to let's change it to 20. There we go, that's readable. Okay, I like that. This is another important dimension right here. Okay. Now, I put my number on top of a line. No, okay? A lot of you got nicked for your midterm when you put your numbers on top of a line, okay? So just be aware that that's incorrect. Let's do another, just to be sure, let's do this. It's 170. And, you know what? I have the lens in. Height, width, and, let's do this down here. Let's give the user this information, which is 5. And also this information in between, 15. Okay, so that's some general overall dimensions that we can do. Now let's go in here and finish off our title block quickly. Next, okay, this is called the solar light. And we want curves in millimeters. Very good. We want the designer name, which is what's your name? And we want the date. So DATE. Let's bump this down to 10. And we also want the scale. Okay. Lastly, let's put the date in, which is today we are November 7th, so 07 November 2016. Let's make this 15. That's a little bit too big, so let's scale that down. Let's go back and do that again, and let's make it 10. There we go. That fits. That doesn't. And lastly, the scale, which is easily 1 to 1. Bump that up to 20. Okay, done. Drawing is finished in less than 5 minutes, okay? So you can see the power of these new algorithms that get put into our design packages. They make our workflow incredibly fast, okay? So show me that you can do this in 5 minutes, okay? And I'll walk around and help anybody that has questions, all right? Okay, question. Dimensions, okay. Size. And go and precision. Change that to question here? Yeah, you're at the top view down here. Well, you notice I used any one of these lines, and then I moved it into position, so it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because you're going to want to get close to this after you mirror it. Mirror it, and then move it. Okay, you're ready for border. You guys go, rotate it in the middle. In the middle of the line. Okay, that is inside. Dimensions. Only AutoCAD does that, to be honest. And sometimes I forget what AutoCAD uses. Yeah, I think Rhino only allows you above the line. They don't allow you to go inside. So in that sense, it's, I think maybe if you made your, there's no programming for that. No, we can't control that. It has to be there. Right? Now, what you can do is you can do it manually. Okay, let's go in here. Let's change the height. And let's do another dimension. Now we explode this. So you can manipulate it after exploding however you want to. Okay? That's how you do it. Okay, anybody else have questions? Come up here. All of this in the perspective. And there it is. And there's your views, top, front, side. You guys done? A little bit too, what happened? Zoom in there. So scale that down. Okay? Question? when we created the model, it was wrong. Can we go back and measure your CAD model? Let's look at your CAD model. Where's your 3D model? Where's your 3D model? No. You have to have your 3D model. Can you open that back up? Again, save this. Save this. Save this. So let's fix it. Alright, let's go and open up your 3D model. Yeah, where's your 3D data? You have a 3D model? This is 2D. Rhino 3D model. Open up your 3D model.
난 네모부 좋은 거 같은데.
Now we got 3D. Okay, so here's the 3D data. Top, front, and side. Okay? So move, copy this. Mirror, copy. Now dimension that and make another one. All right, how are we doing? Any questions? Do the drawing? Title block. Give me a title block. That looks good. Question here. Ah, okay. We have to explode that. So select explode. Out in the middle, you can explode. Question here. 330.2. Okay, so now we know that that's 330. So what you have to do is explode that and just go in and edit it. Just change it. Okay? Now it's A3 size. Use your box tool. Okay? Just get it the right height and width. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just make it look the right proportion. I mean, A3 size is actually what, 427 by 290. Okay, something like that. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It just has to be close. Okay, we're going to move on before any questions or analysis answered. Okay. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. We got all your data. Good, very nice. Okay, so let's get the view that we want. Top three-quarter. A little bit of this. Okay, we like that. Dimension, 2D drawing, and it says select object. So select everything. Enter. For view USA. Okay. We'll deposit those views right here after it goes through the perspective view. And then we'll go to the top view, right view. Okay, now you got 4 views. So let's copy this one. Okay. And do the same thing with this view down here. And then create your border dimensions. Okay? We only need a few dimensions, okay? Let's, we don't have to do the whole thing. Anybody else? How are we doing here? Get it done? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, last question, and then we'll move on to rendering. How to manipulate. Okay. We're going to explode this. Select, explode. Let's take a look at there's 2 ways to control this. We can do it in settings. I found a solution to your problem. Remember I told you that we couldn't move the text? It's right in here. And dimension style. Okay, let's scroll down here. This is what you need in dimension. So now we're doing dimension. Okay, that's drawing. Now that we've got our 3D model finished, we've got our drawing finished, now we need to image it, okay? Now this is something that you typically designers do during the design process. When you're making your 3D model, I've showed you how to use the ghosting feature. Okay, we've got wireframe views, we've got shaded views, rendered views, okay? These are different ways to image or visualize your design during the design process, okay? Now, we also can use what's called KeyShot, which is this software right here, KeyShot 64. I believe this is release 4 or 5. Okay, and this is rendering software. Okay. So what I'll do is let's minimize this. Let's close this. All right. So let's open up. Now, I'm going to tell you this is a large package, just like AutoCAD and just like Rhino. There's lots of things to learn. But you can quickly assign some materials and be rendering in less than 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to only show you the minimum of how to get materials assigned to your model, and then I'll let you be curious about all the other features. Okay, because it really is a big package, but we don't have time to go into it in detail in this class. We're already learning 2 other software packages. Okay, so open up your KeyShot 4, and you get this what's called a stage, okay? And you've got some controls down here that also correspond with your pull-down menus. So these commands up here are the same thing down here, okay? Now, what's easy is you just pull your model into the stage, okay? So you go find your 3D model and just drag it over, and it asks you, do you want to import? You say yes, and there it is, okay? So now I got everything except for my diffuser, okay? There's something wrong with this model, so I got to fix it. But there's your 3D data now inside of KeyShot, okay? And as you can see, it preserved the color of the layer, which is nice and helpful. Another way to identify your data, it's now data, okay? It's design data. So let's go into what's called the library. And here are all your material choices that you can assign, okay? Cloth, leather, liquids, metal, okay? That's your materials library. Over here, we can import other models, okay? Now here, this link called we got all of our information on the data model here, okay? So we've got the lens, the light cone, the switch, the light base, all these different layers were imported and kept separate in KeyShot. So we can turn things off inside of KeyShot and render individually, okay? So let's just start with the lens and the light cone and the switch. Okay, let's assign some materials to just that for now. Let's keep the other details off. Okay. All right. So I've isolated my my lens, my light cone, and my switch. And your left mouse button, mouse button, allows you to manipulate and rotate your model to the view that you like. Okay. All right. So let's go back to our library, and here's my light cone in reality. I've got a clear plastic material on top here, and I've got a colored plastic on the side. It's white, okay? So let's see what we can find in our library in terms of clear. Let's go to the glass area, and it looks like we've got all different colored glass here. Let's, I'm going to go with this basic white. Now all you do is left click and drag your material to the layer. It's that easy. It's all click and drag, okay? Now if I wanted a blue kind of glass, I just click that and it changes the color. But I really don't like that. So what does this look like? I kind of like, oh, that's interesting. All right, so let's go back to what is most appropriate. Okay, what's most appropriate in this case? We're trying to mimic our technology, okay? So clear glass is best. All right. All right, now let's look. The base is it's a white plastic. So let's go to the plastics library here. And let's find some white plastic. clear, clear, cloudy, hard, shiny. Let's try this. Now, this is, when you get this kind of imagery, that means the algorithm is thinking, okay? It's starting to render it in place, okay? So as you see it, it's slowly getting more visible, okay? You know, these machines that you guys work on in the lab here, these computers, are extremely slow. You should understand that the processor chip inside your computer gets pushed to the edge with programs like Shop, okay? You know, the big Hollywood studios over in Hollywood that do animation for Iron Man, their computers fill up an entire room like this when they're doing rendering shots of Iron Man, okay? So you should know that when you want to push your computer to the edge of its capability, doing rendering like this will do it very easily. So many calculations going on. Trying to calculate the shadow, the light source, the angle. Very sophisticated software, okay? All right, now that's supposed to be shiny plastic. Oh, I do have a switch here. Let's switch it black. Okay, I still don't like that white plastic. It's kind of gray. That's a little bit warmer. I want something really hard white. Here we go. There's white. Okay, now it appears gray because the light source is coming up from the bottom. We've got shadows here, okay? So that's for all intents and purposes, we've just rendered our light source, okay? All right, so we're ready to go back into our library. Let's turn on the light base and base rods and render those. Okay, so now here's where we get to be creative with materials, okay? This materials library is very vast. Everything from wood to plastic to metal exists inside this library. So let's have some fun. And let's make a wood base, okay? Let's go into the wood area. Here's our different wood choices. Let's try a polished walnut. Or no, red oak is pretty. Let's try that. Okay. And I do have these rods here. I'm going to make a metal rod. So let's go into metal, and let's make a copper. Let's find some copper, touch it there. Ooh, that looks cool. Okay, so now I have one more level to go. Okay, I've got my outside to turn on. Outside. Okay, so I got my materials established. Let's go back to wood. We're using red oak. Now, for some reason, my rods didn't export. Okay, I have to go back and fix that later. But for all intents and purposes, there's my solar light with the materials assigned. Now we have to render it. So let's. Over here we have rendered, okay? This sets up our parameters for how much quality we want in our rendering. Because remember, in KeyShot, the higher quality photorealism you want, the tighter, more realistic, detailed rendering, the larger the file will be, okay? If you want just a quick and dirty, loose, fuzzy looking image, very quick rendering, okay? Let me try to illustrate that for you. All right, so we're going to save on the, we're going to go to the desktop. That's where I want to save it. And I'm going to call it, the Solar Light 1 rendering. Now here you can pick your aspect ratio. Right now it's pretty low, and we go all the way up to 1920 by 1325, which is extremely high res. It'll take forever to render, okay? So let's go to the 640 by 442, which is the smallest, and let's do a quick rendering, okay? We can also change this. Let's go down to 100 dpi. All right, and click render. Done. Wow, that was fast. Okay. Now let's. Okay, so now that rendering should appear. Close. It's asking me. Okay. Close that. Now that should be on the desktop. There it is, right there. There's my JPEG file. Okay, but you can see how small it is, right? Let's do some detail rendering next. All right, let's zoom in here and really get into the detail of the material. Okay, now you can see how much more of the screen we're using. So we're adding more data to the model. So let's go ahead and render this at the same parameter and see how long it takes. All right, a little bit more information. So it's moving around, taking its time. And we're finished. So less than 10 seconds, okay? And that should be saved on my desktop. If I go check. Yes, there it is. There's my rendering. Very cool. All right, now I just want to render the light cone. So I'm going to go into my library and turn off my outside, my base rods, and my base. And let's get an interesting view here. Like that. And let's render that. But let's bump up the resolution to, let's double it. Let's go to, and see how much longer it takes, okay? So I've doubled the resolution. I'm at 1024 by 706. Render. Okay, that's still pretty good. That was fast, but you can see how, this is called aliasing. That's a term that you guys should be aware of. There's aliasing, and there's also the opposite, which is anti-aliasing. Okay, so when you're trying to get really tight imagery, you have to be aware of your edges. You can see how that edge is pixelated like that, okay? So let's, we want a really tight image of this. So I want to apply some control to my resolution. So let's close this and let's go all the way to the most high resolution, 1920 by 1325, and then let's render it. And this might take a little bit longer. But we still got some aliasing going on here. Okay, so I'm going to interrupt that. I'm going to stop it. And I'm going to, let's bump up the DPI. 200. Ah, much better. At least it looks good on my screen here. Okay, so you got all these different ways to tweak the resolution, okay, which controls the clarity of your image, okay? Now when you're presenting to a client, remember, this design that we're doing is all about communicating to an audience, okay? So you get to control the volume, the modulation of how you present, okay? All right? You get to control what your design looks like. It can look terrible or it can look really mesmerizing, depending on how good you are with the KeyShot software, okay? So, and you should know that a lot of graduates who leave design school, a lot of people get a job doing this right away after school. So if you want to get a job right away out of school and make some money, learn how to use Rhino and KeyShot. Okay? Especially KeyShot. Making presentable images is a good way to make money for a product design studio or working as a freelancer. Okay? This is a skill that's in demand. Okay? All right, so I've shown you a few tools. Now let's experiment for 5 or 10 minutes with this, and I'll come around and ask questions. Okay? Okay, let's do a little bit of exercise. Let's do show me a wood version of the design. Pick out some wood and metal. Okay, that's number one. Let's do a plastic version. And let's also do a, what are my other choices here? Let's do a stone glass version, stone glass. Okay, so stone exterior and glass rods. Let's see what that looks like, okay? Okay, question. Who's got a question?
나 만든 거 없어졌어.
Oh, that's imported. There's nothing else.
시작할 때가 아닌 것 같아요.
So you're wondering where the rest of your model is?
근데 사이즈가
Model? Let's save your gamma files. One thing you should know is when you're using a Keyshot software, because of it using so much processing power, sometimes it rearranges the way it reads information, and you have what are called software glitches. Okay, these are very common because you're pushing your computer to the limit. So when you run into a software glitch, you have to save all your files, shut down your computer, and restart it so you can recalibrate your processor so it does what you want it to do. Okay? So when you run into a glitch and you're having problems with getting the software to do what you want, save your file, close your computer, shut it down, and restart. Okay, who else had a question? Oh, you got some extra stuff there. We don't need this. Okay, let's take a look at your. So you're importing. Which file are you importing? This one? Okay, first of all, when you're importing into Keyshot, all you want is 3D data. We don't need any of this 2D data. Okay, so let's create a new file. Let's grab this. Export selected. Okay, and we'll give it a name called new. Save. Okay, now let's, this is already open. Open that up. Import it. There it is. Okay, we're missing some data. It doesn't like the outside for some reason. It refuses to see the outside. Looks good. So it's not seeing outside. There's nothing weird about that. Let's try this. Let's create a new layer. Let's put all of this on the red layer. Good. And let's delete all of this. Shift. Okay, now we just have everything on one layer. Let's save this. Back to here. Close this. And shot. because that's all black. It's very slow. See this? I can't rotate. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. This is a glitch. So let's close this and reboot the computer. Restart. Okay, there's your wood one. It's wood with metal. Try metal pins, okay?